Hey there, my name's Graham and I'm a therapist who specializes in working with teenagers. Today, I want to break down the core things adults often misunderstand about working with adolescents and how we can actually support them in a way that works. Whether you're a parent, educator, therapist, or you just know a teenager, this will help. Let's get into it. The name of the game during adolescence is instability. A teenager is juggling puberty, a developing sense of self, a new shift toward peer-oriented social dynamics, and an often abrupt change in their relationships with their caregivers. All told, being a teenager is inherently stressful even under the best circumstances. And as adults, the more we can be sensitive to that, the more supportive we will be able to be for the teenagers that we care about. For many, puberty is the first thing they think of when they think about adolescence. And puberty isn't just about bodies changing, it's about brain chemistry shifting rapidly. The release of hormones drastically impacts their mood, energy, decision-making, and emotional tolerance of teenagers. And as adults, we forget that teens are basically learning how to drive their own brain for the first time while also navigating a massive change physically and socially. Again, this is inherently stressful, and we want to be sure to be sensitive and gentle in our interactions with teenagers, knowing that they are already under a lot of stress. For a lot of adults, the experience of a teenager rebelling can be unsettling and confusing. Weren't they just yesterday the little kid who loved being with their caregiver or adored their elementary school teacher? This separation from adults, however, is totally normal, and in fact, we want this to happen. Adolescence is when teens start forming their own sense of identity, including through their sense of style, their interests, their beliefs, and their own voice. We want to encourage exploration as much as is safe for them. And we also want to normalize and allow for them to try things and move on quickly. While it may seem shifty from an adult perspective, it's really just them experimenting and deciding how they like different things. When they practice voicing their preferences, sometimes it comes out as resistance or stubbornness, but we want to support their ability to share their voice, even if they don't always do so in the most gentle of ways. The reason that they are separating from adults is because they are beginning to prepare for the peer-focused social dynamic that will define the rest of their life. They need peer interactions more than ever because these are the people they will eventually work with, live with, be in relationships with, and interact with in their day-to-day life. They need to figure out how to communicate more deeply, successfully navigate conflict, collaborate to collective ends, and the many other activities that make up adult life. And even though they may seem like they don't want adult influence, they still need adults as a secure base, even as their primary bonding shifts toward friendships and romantic and sexual exploration. This is healthy, even if it sometimes feels like rejection on the adult's end. So how do we as adults support teenagers well? The first way is through relational consistency. Teens thrive when the adult relationships in their lives are predictable. In my work as a therapist, I keep all of my students on a schedule where I see them at the same time on the same day every week. As a teacher, I had an established and well-communicated routine in my classroom. All of this set my teenagers up to know what to expect from me. And when I work with caregivers, I encourage them to, as much as possible, try to maintain a positive, supportive relationship with their teenager. They are already likely beating themselves up internally and are likely feeling like everyone else is criticizing them. The more that their caregivers can be their biggest fan and offer support when they need it and provide structure at home, the more safe they will feel. The second way that we can support teenagers is by supporting their growth, both in their connection with themselves and in their connection with their peers. Oftentimes, teenagers tend to lean toward one side or the other. A teen more focused on themselves will likely have really clear goals for themselves, but might not see as much value in investing in their relationships. There's nothing inherently wrong with that, but we want to help these teenagers find supportive peers that they might not seek out for themselves. This might look like getting them involved in an extracurricular activity or simply ensuring that when they express an interest in a person or in a group of peers, that we do what we can to encourage the development of those relationships, especially doing so in person rather than in the digital space. More on that shortly. On the other side, many teens tend to focus on their relationships with their peers. This might look like a teenager who finds themselves involved in drama a lot, or moving from one romance to another, or simply is very invested in the friendships that they are developing. Again, peer relationships are one of the main focuses of this time, but some teenagers are so invested that they never explore who they are as a person, and they lose themselves as a result. For these teens, we want to encourage them to explore their interests, whether it's hobbies, types of music or clothes, or wherever else we see their individuality shining through. As adults, we can support this by staying curious about it and helping them uncover what about these interests draws them in. The third way that we can support their development is through fostering healthy emotional maturity. Many teens act immature because emotionally they are. When they act emotionally in ways that seem childish, I always try to assume that their emotional skills are simply underdeveloped. This looks like having a lot of grace, modeling healthy emotional expression ourselves, and then giving them lots of practice in expressing themselves well, always keeping in mind that they have a lot to express due to the amount of change they are going through and the stress that that is putting on them as a result. Another key area that teens need support is in the digital space. Technology is not good or bad, but it is a tool with enormous influence. As the saying goes, with great power comes great responsibility. And the research is increasingly telling us that social media and smartphone use has negative impacts on teenagers, especially those in their early teens. As adults, we need to be mindful about when we give the teenagers in our care access to this technology, and then when we do, we need to monitor and have regular, open conversations about what goes on in the digital space. It's also important that we model healthy device use. Putting devices away at the table, in the car, and in the classroom as much as possible. Charging our devices outside of our bedroom to promote healthy sleep habits, and taking extended breaks from our devices and social media on a regular basis. Beyond these considerations, it is crucial to never overlook the importance of sleep and exercise. Both of these have massive impacts on teen mental and emotional development and are best supported by us as adults by modeling healthy care of both ourselves. I've worked with both middle schoolers and high schoolers and tend to think about each slightly differently. With middle schoolers, my main goal is to provide structure, because structure during such a chaotic time means safety for them. They don't always love it, but they need frameworks, predictable routines, and step-by-step progression. Don't assume that they're too old for things like a feelings wheel or a get-to-know-you activity. And don't be afraid to put into place routines at home or in the classroom, communicate them clearly, elicit their feedback when appropriate, and then stick with them. At the same time, I try to offer middle schoolers as much choice as possible. This can be as simple as deciding which direction they want to take on a walk or what they want to help you cook for dinner. Decision making is a skill in and of itself, and oftentimes we make all of the decisions for middle schoolers and then wonder why they can't make decisions for themselves later on. We have to patiently give them opportunities to choose in low stakes contexts so that they and we feel confident about their ability to decide when it matters much more later on. As for high schoolers, my main goal for them is ownership. Their life is about to really become their own, and this is where self-advocacy becomes essential. As much as possible, high schoolers should be raising their own concerns, pursuing their own goals, and otherwise navigating the world on their own. Adults should only be involved when absolutely necessary, and it's important for us to remember that we have to let them choose what they want for their life. To that end, I see adults functioning more like coaches for high schoolers. Our goal is to help them think long-term and empower them to develop practical, real-world skills that they will need to accomplish what they want to accomplish for their life. If you find that your high schooler doesn't feel like they know what they want, continue to encourage their exploration of self. Once a teenager or any person has a clear understanding of who they are, they almost always uncover next steps on their own. For all teens, we want to support their autonomy by letting them choose, letting them try, letting them figure things out. Struggling in safety is a healthy part of development that sets them up to be successful adults. We do this by giving them opportunities to build skills, not just educational and vocational, but mental, emotional, and relational skills too. None of these skills are innate. They are learned by practice, and our job is to help them train those muscles. Supporting teenagers doesn't require perfection. It requires presence, consistency, and understanding the developmental forces at play. Teens might not need adults like they used to, but they still need adult support. Hopefully you found something here that will help you better support the teenager in your life. If so, please subscribe, like, and drop a comment about what topic you would like me to cover next. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.